today I'm going to discuss why Donald Trump must concede the 2020 presidential race and 3 important reasons for him to do so. First, it's clear from election results that President Trump is simply not going to win re-election. While he was ahead in several swing states on election night, as mail-in ballots were continuing to be processed, it was clear that those results were trending against him. I don't think he expected to win mail-in ballots, as he encouraged supporters to vote in person, but many states encouraged citizens to vote by mail on account of the pandemic. This was especially evident in large cities, and you can't deny the convenience of voting by mail. I did so myself in California. Now, looking at the national electoral map, and this was current as of Friday, November 6th, former Vice President Biden is well over the 270 electoral votes necessary to win when you include all states. Now, granted, all states are still counting or verifying votes, but the only state that is trending in Trump's favor is Arizona, where he's still down about 30,000 votes with an estimated 173,000 left. He would need to carry just under 60% of remaining ballots to catch Joe Biden. If Trump won Arizona, he would still be a couple of swing states from winning. Look at the current voting margins. Yes, some of them seem small, but it's important to remember population sizes when you're viewing margins. For example, 20,000 votes in Nevada is considerably more significant than a highly populated state like Pennsylvania. The problem for President Trump in Pennsylvania is that he was ahead 500,000 votes, in fact over 500,000 votes on election day, and it has completely evaporated as votes from Pittsburgh and Philadelphia have accumulated over the past days. Biden's lead in Pennsylvania will now grow, and these 10, 20, 100,000 vote leads is important to remember when you hear Trump talk about recounts or lawsuits. It's all nonsense. Let me explain. Each state has provisions for when recounts may occur. For example, a state could say that there's a recount if an election is within 0.5%. There might also be another provision that says, well, if it's not 0.5%, which would make it automatic, if it's up to 1%, you can have one, but you can request a recount, but you would have to cover the expenses for the recount, or when they talk about paying for the recount. So Carl Balick at 538 was researching recounts after the 2016 presidential election, and he found that of 4,687 statewide general elections between 2000 and 2015, just 27 were followed by recounts. The average change after the recount was 219 votes. 219. The largest was 1,247 during the 2000 presidential election in Florida. Now, let's not rehash that election, but between the two major candidates in 2000, there were 5,825,043 votes cast in Florida. So that means it's 0.0214% were changed. That's about one ballot for every 4,671 cast. Even though none of these states are as large as Florida, do you see any of them coming down to 2,000 votes? The votes for the president are simply not there. He's going to have the second most votes ever in a presidential election, but he'll be second to President-elect Biden. Now, I'm bringing all of this data into the discussion because I want to show you how I'm looking at this, objectively. But the second reason why President Trump needs to concede is not related to data, but American history and representative democracy as an idea. America is a republic, and like all democratic institutions, draw power from the consent of the governed. In other words, we vote, and as part of the voting process, we grant certain powers to our elected officials. And Democratic governments have proven time and time again to be superior to the alternatives. If we erode our democratic institutions, will that continue to be the case? When I say we, I mean, including you and I, and the rest of the public. I mean, we cannot allow our elected representatives, including and especially President Trump, to go around and spew nonsense like, if I win, that's great, and if I lose, I've been cheated, or the election's rigged, or the whole thing's illegal. Did you notice anything unusual when you voted? If you did, please post it in the comments. I'd love to, hear, if there was anything out of the ordinary that you noticed. But, generally, President Trump's statements since Election Day have been beyond being a sore loser. This is deliberately undermining the American election system for personal gain. The third reason to concede is the reason President Trump will probably actually concede, which is self-preservation. For him mostly, and for us a little bit. For him, if you remember Trump pre-White House, he's a business mogul, a media magnate. His life is a box of chocolates. What do you think might happen if he drags this 2020 presidential election out to the bitter end? Losing multiple cases in court, or winning the case and still not having it actually change the outcome of the state, because like we say, we're talking about recounts in elections where he's down 10, 20, 100,000 votes. And I've just shown that, we've never even had one that's 1,500. Are there any attorneys general looking into President Trump's activities? I mean, there are already. How about the Trump Organization or his family? Anyone who's followed politics for a while, understands that there's a lot of, quid pro quo. And, Trump, I believe, could improve sort of some of his legal situation by being more considerate during this transition. Now, I'm not saying any criminal activity should be ignored, but I certainly think the American people, myself included, are, quite exhausted with 2020 and would just like to move on and have an administration that's less chaotic and more thoughtful in their decision making. If you found value in this video, please give us a thumbs up. If this is your first time viewing us, my name is Ryan, and we provide gardening tips to help you have a more successful growing season at growing in the city. Occasionally I include a non-gardening related video, such as this one, if there's something important that I really want to share with the fam. The videos that are coming up here link to some of my top gardening videos, as well as how I'm making extra money during 2020. Hope you'll enjoy those too. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.